Hello again and welcome to the Renaissance Polymath. I'm your host today, Toby, and you join me in a vehicle. If you watched the last episode, you know that I'm in a vehicle. But yes, I'm got about 6 hours left ahead of me in this journey on a 7-hour trip for work, and I figure what better opportunity than to sit and talk to you guys and bring you some things that I've been thinking about a lot lately as far as content that I can make and put out there. So let's get right into it. On this episode, I want to talk about something that happened to myself and my family just about 5 or 6 weeks ago. And that is that my house was struck by lightning. Let's get right into it. Yeah, my house was struck by lightning. And when I say that, I don't mean like my house got a power surge because lightning hit a pole and, I lost electronics in my house because the power came through the lines. No, I mean my house took a direct hit from a lightning bolt. And I was home when it happened. What an experience that was. So let me kind of tell you about it. So we just built our home that we live in now. We built it new construction in a community where you just, pick your floor plan, pick your options, and they put it up for you. We built it and we moved in the middle of March, and we were so happy. Long story short, the build process we were told would take about 4.5 months, and it was a 5-month delay on that. We originally told we'd move in November, mid-November, and we didn't move in until mid-March. That's a whole nother story. I may or may not make that video, but if I do, I will link it down below. So we move in middle of March, and at the end of June, our house was struck by lightning. So we weren't in it for, 3 months? I think it was 14 weeks, I think we were in the house, and the house was struck by lightning. Now, when it happened, we were all there. When I say we all, I mean extended family. So my family, as well as my wife's mother and my wife's sister. Because it was the 1-year anniversary of losing our family's patriarch, which I've talked about before in a podcast episode. If you are unfamiliar with that, there is a playlist here on YouTube with podcast episodes. You can go check that out. I believe I called it something about like taking a break. Anyway, I'll link it below. So if you want to learn more about that and kind of what happened, go check that out. But long story short, it was the 1-year anniversary of that. And so we were all together. We wanted to spend the first year together as a family. Everybody had just come into town, and we were all hanging out in the house. It had been raining for about 4 days at that point. It was just a wet season, rainy season where I live. And thankfully, it had been raining for about 4 days at that point, because I was sitting in the living room, and where I was sitting, I had a view out of the back door, the back sliding door, big glass thing right out into the backyard and kind of the neighbor's backyard. And it wasn't loud. It wasn't, that people say, the hair on the back of my neck stands up, or it was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Maybe I'm a bad reference for that because I have hearing loss in my left ear from firing a gun. Stupid story there. I was hunting, fired one shot, 25% hearing loss in my left ear. Anyway, wear hearing protection, use suppressors, all that kind of stuff. Protect what you have. So I'm sitting, it wasn't loud, the hair back never stood up. Maybe it was because I was inside, not outside. But lightning struck the house, or lightning struck. Let me say that. Lightning struck. I knew it was close because when I was looking out the back door, what I saw was actually kind of interesting. So when lightning strikes, and I'm sure you've seen this on slow-mo video of lightning strikes, the air is on fire for a little bit. I don't know how else to describe it. Like the air burns for an extra second. That's what I saw. So I'm looking out the back sliding glass door. I just happened to be looking that direction, and the lightning hit, and I remember seeing the air on fire. Now, the direction that I was looking, it was in between our house and our neighbor's house. So my initial thought was, oh man, that hit either our aluminum fence that borders our backyard so our dogs don't run away, or the ground nearby, right? Like, oh man, that hit in between our houses. So I immediately texted the neighbor like, hey, are you guys okay? Just making sure. That lightning hit was pretty close. And they were like, yeah, we're okay. That was really close. You guys okay? You know, checking on each other. We're brand new neighbors too, by the way. It was, you know, brand new community, new construction. So all of us, we haven't known each other but for maybe 2 months at this point, tops. And it's not like we spend every day together. And so we're like, yeah, that was weird. So I went, checked the breaker box, and 3 breakers had tripped. I was like, oh, okay. You know, click, 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 reset, whatever. And then I started going around the house checking okay, well, those breakers tripped. Let me go around. And I was actually downstairs. We have a basement where we are. And I was downstairs in the basement, and I hear my wife say, hey, honey, somebody's at the door. I'm like, well, it's pouring outside. Why is somebody at my door? Well, what had happened was one of our neighbors, who lives probably about 300 yards from our home, they have a covered back porch area that's screened in, really pretty. And they happened to be sitting outside watching the thunderstorm. And he watched the lightning bolt hit the front of the house. And he's like, I have to come over and check. He opened the door and, hi, I'm Bob. I'm your neighbor. We've never met, but I was sitting out back. I watched it happen. I had to come over to make sure you were okay. I was like, oh, like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, lightning hit close. He goes, no, lightning hit your house. I watched it come off of the front of your house. The front of our house has 3 different peaks, and didn't even hit the highest peak. That was a whole other thing. But he said, yeah, I watched it hit your house. I had to come over and make sure everybody inside was okay. I was like, well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. Yes, we're all okay. Yeah, the breakers tripped, whatever, no big deal. Mind you, it's pouring outside. So to look up at the roof, you're looking directly into the rain. I couldn't see anything. Fast forward about 12 hours, the rain finally stops, the sun comes out, it's the next morning, and this was 8 o'clock at night, by the way. So as we start going around the house that night, you know, turn the lights on to go to bed, new construction, got to use the most efficient everything. So I think we have 50-something LED little puck lights in the house. They all start burning out. You turn it on, bzz, it makes an awful sound, like a frying sound, and it burns out. And, well, it scared the crap out of me. So, of course, you know, okay, we'll just shut that switch off. The next morning, go outside. I'm looking at the roof, like, what happened? I can't see anything. I got binoculars. Obviously, I'm not getting on a ladder. I don't do heights. I really don't like them. So I'm looking at the roof. I can't see anything wrong. And then finally, on the front of the house, where the peaks are, there's metal flashing, obviously, that covers all that to protect the wood. And all of the nails were missing, and the flashing was kind of flapping off the house. The lightning had hit the house, had electrified the entire flashing, blown the nails out of the front, and I knew this because the flashing was hanging, but also there were scorch marks around where the nails used to be. And yeah, so that happened. So we identify the problem. I talked to the warranty team with the builder that we used, and I said, look, I know it's probably not covered, but I have to ask. He said, no, absolutely, it's not covered. We don't. Our warranty team doesn't cover acts of God, I think is what he said. I said, well, that's fine, but can you give me contact information for all the tradesmen that I'm going to need to bring to the house to look at this stuff? So, Cliff Notes version. That was a Thursday night. The house got struck by lightning 8 p.m. Thursday. Friday morning, we're on the phone with the insurance company to open a claim because we know we lost a bunch of lights, lost a bunch of stuff. I'll go through a list at the end. But yeah, so we're on the phone with the insurance company Friday morning. The following Tuesday or Wednesday, the adjuster came out. He was there for 20 minutes. Made an assessment. Oh shoot, that was a red light. I couldn't see that. God, I can't see that. I was 2 seconds behind that truck. Anyway, to be fair, he blew it too. he never hit his brakes. So the adjuster comes out on a Wednesday. By the following Monday, so now we're 10 days, 11 days after, had the electrician come out. The electrician fixed, there was a circuit in the garage that wouldn't reset. It blew a GFI plug, and I tried to replace it. I took pictures of everything, put it back the way I thought it was. Turns out I had swapped 2 of the wires, so the plug wasn't working. No big deal. The electrician came out, did that. We hired the siding crew to come out and give us a quote on what it would take to replace all that flashing and stuff. They gave us a quote and they said, but we're not going to do any work until you get a roofing company out here just to make sure the roof is good, because if they start tearing stuff apart, it's going to affect our work. So we called the roofing company. They come out to give me a quote, and the guy goes up on the ladder, and I'll overlay some pictures here. But long story short is, I knew it affected the roof because of the neighbor, but also because of this picture here, where I could see a hole in the soffit. The soffit is the stuff underneath a peak, underneath the roof, so that the roof can breathe. Otherwise, you basically have an airtight home, and then it could expand and contract just like a water bottle would. So the soffit breathes, and I see there's a hole in the soffit, and it's got tiny little pieces of MDF plywood on the lower roof that's over our front door. And so I knew it needed to be looked at. He goes up, he pulls down that soffit piece that was broken, looks up, and I hear him go, Jesus. Now, this is a professional roofer getting up on my roof, probably 30 years experience, and he's saying that. It caught my attention, and he turns and he looks at his boss, who's standing on the ground, the guy who ultimately runs the company, and he says, we're not leaving until this is fixed, which really piqued my interest. So I'll overlay some pictures, but long story short, it punched probably more than a fist-size hole. Looking at it, it's actually kind of bigger. The lightning struck the roof directly, punched a fist-size hole, at least, in the roof, blew the plywood down through the soffit, blew all the nails out of the flashing in the front of the house, as well as some in the back of the house. So yeah, the roofers had to replace all that. The siding crew came the following Monday, and I had to replace a ton of electronics in the home. Now, as homeowners, we anticipate having to do certain things, right? Hey, there's just certain things. Your septic system backs up as a homeowner. That happens, right? Your toilet backs up, your septic system, whatever. That happens. A pipe bursts, or your electricity goes bad, an outlet goes out, a fixture stops working, garbage disposal, major appliance, whatever. We're prepared for certain things, right, as homeowners. A leak, you fix it. A lightning strike was nowhere even near, not even the top of the list. It wasn't on the list. You don't, as homeowners, prepare for how to deal with a direct lightning strike. Power surges, okay. You get a whole home surge protector, it installs next to your breaker panel. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And people ask me afterwards too, well, you really need to get a whole home surge protector. And I kind of pissed me off. And I'm like, how do you protect the circuitry within your home from a surge when the surge originates in the home? You don't. Bottom line is you don't. The whole home surge protector protects you from the mains power surges, which again, still a really good idea to do. I think it's $600-700 to get something like that installed, but it could save you a lot of money, and I'll explain that in a second. All that said, dealing with the insurance company, they absolutely did right by us. The adjuster that came out was really good. The only kind of negative feedback we had was that adjuster took like a 2-week vacation the day after he did our assessment and never told us. So we're out, trying to reach back out for, an addendum payment, an additional payment to us, and got nothing for 2 weeks. And finally we called the main office and they said, hey, yeah, he's been on vacation. We're like, well, he doesn't have out of office. His voicemail, nothing says that he's not working. So that was our only complaint there. But otherwise, the insurance company was great. Let me really quick talk about the insurance process. So the way ours worked was you call, you start a claim, you open a claim. The claim then gets assigned to a local adjuster based on workload and obviously the territory you're in. The adjuster schedules a time to come out and take a look. He came out, he looked, like I said, he was there for about 20 minutes, made his assessment, told us, look, this is just an assessment. If things change, let's say you need to replace a piece of electrical component or whatever, you replace it, you send me the receipt, we will cover the difference, which was good. I'll explain why that was important here in a second. We did all that. I worked with all the tradesmen. Thankfully, I had somebody who had contact for all of them in the warranty team for the builder that we used. and got all that done. All the repairs got done. All the things got replaced. My wife, sent the information back to the adjuster, said, here's the receipts for everything that we had to replace that what you gave us didn't cover, and then they cut us an extra payment, and we're done. We're done with the process. It's, 5-6 weeks later, and house is back to the way it was. All the things have been replaced. So what had to get replaced? So in our home, I mentioned we have those LED lights. They're called puck lights because they look like hockey pucks. They're not the flush mount. They actually stick down a little bit from the ceiling, which is good because I had to replace a bunch of these. I think we have 55 of them in the home that we have, just the way the lighting package that we got. So far, because they still occasionally burn out, we did buy extras, I have had to replace 27 of them. It's not a hard process. It pops down. You take the wire nuts off. It's 2 wires, a white and a black. Wire nuts go back on, light goes back up, turn the light on, make sure it works. It's a very simple process, but I've had to replace 27 of them so far. We lost our doorbell, so I had to buy a whole new doorbell kit. We also have a video doorbell. I had to buy a whole new one of those. We have 2 garage doors, so we have 2 garage door openers. Both of those got fried. And when you replace that, we called a guy because we knew somebody local who had done really good work at our last home. We called him out. I think it took him like 40 minutes to replace both, but he didn't just replace the motors. He replaced the entire tracks, the chain, everything. So money extremely well spent there. So both garage door openers, the garage circuit that wouldn't reset, we lost that. So in my home in the basement, there's a basement bedroom that's not a bedroom. I've turned it into a studio, basically. You've seen it. In there, I lost the all-in-one computer that I have. There's a little HP thing I got. It was older. I bought it used. I lost that, fried, power surge. I lost both of my ham radios, the Icom IC 7300 and the Yaesu FTM 400 XDR, both gone, fried. I lost my Blackmagic ATEM Mini Pro video switcher. I lost my Scarlet 2i2 audio interface switcher. I lost my ham radio power supply. I lost a GoPro Hero 3, which was plugged into all this. Just the Icom alone was $1,100 to replace. Actually, no, I lied. I think I paid $1,000, but retail on it's like $1,400. So just that alone. So when we talk whole home surge protectors, it cost me $700 to replace. Think of what a computer costs to replace. A good computer, you're probably talking $800-900. You've already covered the cost of that whole home surge protector being installed just by having to replace one electrical component. We also lost the television, 27 of the puck lights, our home internet. The modem literally melted internally. We have because of the size of our home, we have to use a mesh network, which are all hardwired for wired backhaul back to the main. All of those, because they're connected via Cat 6, those all got fried. So we had to replace our modem. We had to replace we had to replace our modem. The internet service provider we use had to come out and replace our modem. And because it's fiber, I couldn't do it myself. It's a proprietary bullshit. We had to replace the whole home internet. Now, thankfully, where we live, I swear almost every single one of our neighbors is in the tech industry somehow. Immediately when it happened, we learned we had no internet. Both of our neighbors on either side opened up their guest networks and gave us the SSID and the credentials to get in to those guest networks so we could power things like our home alarm system. We had some entertainment for our family through one television. We didn't want to overdo it, so we just put on one TV up to one guest network. We hooked our security system up to the other guest network, and that was basically it. But they immediately did that. So mind you, we've known these people for 2 months, but it's that sense of community, even in a brand new community where we haven't gotten the chance to know each other. So a huge thanks goes out to the neighbors. Of course, we obviously did something nice for them, baked some food, that kind of thing. But kudos to them for doing that. It really speaks volumes to who they are and the community that we live in. But yeah, so we lost the internet, we lost our modem as well as our router system. Long story short, the insurance adjuster figured about $15,000 worth of damage. And keep in mind, the house didn't catch fire, thank God. It had been raining for 4 days to that point. So the house didn't catch fire, nobody got hurt. Those are the two most important things. But we've all seen them, the videos of lightning striking a tree and the tree just exploding, right? It blows up. Or a home gets struck by lightning and there's a gas line nearby and the gas line catches fire and the house blows up. Or the house catches fire just simply from the lightning strike. None of that happened. We are so thankful and so incredibly lucky that it didn't happen that way. So we, count your blessings, so to speak. But as a homeowner, you don't think, hey, I got to prepare for a direct lightning strike. But consider that might be a possibility depending on where you live. We're not the tallest home on the block. We're not the biggest home on the block. We're not the nearest to the water or little retention pond for the community. We do have a fence, but we're not the only one with a fence. It didn't hit the highest peak in the house. There was no reason it should have hit our home, and yet it did hit our home. It was a very strange situation. Very strange situation. So I'll end this by saying there's a few things that I have heard from a couple different communities. The ham radio community gave me you got to make sure your shack is grounded. Well, I did things to prepare for that. Lightning, I disconnected the antennas, but I didn't think to disconnect power because I didn't think that would be an issue because it's literally its own dedicated circuit coming off the breaker. Whatever. I've heard other people say, well, you should install lightning rods, the little things you put on the top of your house that occasionally you see them. Makes it look like a castle, I guess. Little points, and they're connected by a big wire, and that is, in theory, supposed to provide a point to ground for the electricity. But there's a few reasons I don't like that. Number one, all you're doing is making your house taller, right? So you're, in essence, attracting things. And not only are you making it taller, you're putting a metal thing as your highest point. It's not intelligent, in my opinion. Also, if you watch how some of those things are wired, the wires, that thick wire that connects it all, that goes to the ground, there's 90-degree turns in that thing. Now, as a ham radio guy, I've had to take tests and understand certain things about electricity. And what I know about electricity is that it doesn't like 90-degree turns. It's just going to keep going. It's not going to make that quick 90-degree turn. So I don't know how much they would actually work. Also, there's the element of electricity, and I looked this up afterwards. The average bolt of lightning is somewhere between 1 million and 1 billion with a B volts. I mean, at that point, it's going to do whatever the hell it wants to do. It's going to go wherever the hell it wants to go, and it's going to overload everything in its path. So to think that a tiny little zero gauge wire, which again, I say tiny, obviously zero gauge is good, or flat strap or something, to think that that's going to do a thing and then to put a 90-degree bend in it, I think it's a false sense of security, truthfully. So do I plan to install these things? No. Do I think the old adage, lightning will never strike twice in the same place? No, I don't think that's true either. I think that's an old wives' tale. I mean, look at anything, right? Any tall building gets struck many times, and one could argue, yeah, but from a minuscule standpoint, it's not the same. Whatever. Get out of here with that. I care about my house. The question is, will lightning strike my house again? Yes, of course. There's always the potential for that. So what have I done to prepare for it? Honestly, I've bought surge protectors, like actual good surge protectors that plug into the wall. My plan is to eventually get a whole home surge protector down the road. That is a plan. I didn't say it was going to happen now. Might not happen for a little bit, but that is a plan to do that. And then just make sure now that I understand the power of lightning and what it can do and how it can kind of get everywhere in the home, when a thunderstorm rolls through, I make sure that I have certain things unplugged. That's just the end of it. You can't blow it up if it's not connected to the circuit. At least in my mind, that's what I think. So yeah, that about sums it up, man. My house was struck directly by lightning, and it was a hell of an experience to deal with. It's not something that I think I would wish upon anybody, quite frankly, because the variables are innumerable. But yeah, house was struck by lightning, and that's how I got this GoPro. I had to replace the GoPro that I lost. It was a Hero 3, which was actually my newest GoPro. It was a Hero 3. No, I take that back. I have a Hero 4 that I bought last year used. Oh, they missed their exit. Gotta be careful, people. Yeah, so Hero 3 I had to replace, and I figured, heck, if I have to replace a GoPro camera, as it was listed on the itemized list from the insurance adjuster, I replaced it with a GoPro camera. This one happens to be the 11 Black, or whatever it is. And I've got media mod, and anyway, long story short, that's how I got the Hero 11, is lightning struck my house and blew up my Hero 3. That's the end of it. So that about wraps up this episode. Do your own continued research and education. Look into electricity, look into power surges. How frequent are they in your area? Are you in a corridor where lightning strikes more often than not? How can you protect your home? What is your local electric code, especially if you have an older home? Is your home up to code? Check into all that stuff, and also make sure you have fire extinguishers. We have one on every floor in the home. Actually, we have 4. So we have a basement and 2 stories, and on the first floor there's one in the pantry and one in the garage. So basically anywhere there could be oil, cooking oil, motor oil, gasoline, that kind of stuff. So yes, have some fire extinguishers, which I've talked about in an earlier episode of the podcast. Check all that out. Make sure you've got fire extinguishers. Look into your local electric code. Do what you can, but also understand that at the end of the day, lightning's going to do whatever the hell it wants to do. That's a lot of energy in a very, very short amount of time. So, thank you for watching. Check out the link in the description below for the podcast episode that I talked about as to why the family was there, as well as if I do make the one about the builder and the build process that we had. That was a nightmare. If I make it, like I said, I'll link it below. But check out the links below in the video description for all things that are pertinent. With that, I will say thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next episode.